Hello, this is Dr. Nathan Way. Let's talk about stem cells and arthritis treatment. If you have osteoarthritis and are looking for an alternative to joint replacement, you might want to listen up. Does it work? Rather than me tell you, why not have someone else tell you? This is the story of Dennis Keener, and I think you'll find it very interesting. I now have the pleasure of introducing a person, Mr. Dennis Keener, and I'm not going to really say anything anymore because I think he has a very interesting story to tell you. Mr. Keener?
Well, it's nice to be here in Maryland. I'm from Michigan, and it's been very interesting and informative hearing all the speakers here today. We've heard from specialists and experts and doctors and entertainers and legends, and I'm none of the above. I'm here to give a patient's perspective. I underwent a stem cell procedure with Dr. Wee in December of 2010. How I came to that is I've always had a passion for running, and it's something that gets my motor running. And you know, a lot of these people are outstanding in their field of expertise that have been here today. I'm more inclined to be out running in the field. So my story is basically that I love to run, but I didn't get to pick my parents, and my mother had 2 total knee replacements before she was my age, and my father, I inherited a little bit of bow-leggedness from him, so that kind of puts pressure on the knee joints too. And so as a result, I experienced knee problems beginning probably 20 years ago. And they initially began with trauma injuries, both knees. One time I fell off of a boat and landed on a swim platform and tore my meniscus and ended up having a scope. Another time I was running on an icy road in the wintertime and twisted my knee and scope on the other one. So that held up for a while, but the wear and tear took its toll over the years as I piled up the miles. When I had the scopes done back in those days, 20 years ago, the doctor's advice was quit running. They said you shouldn't do that anymore, and I took that under consideration. I kept running for a little while, but it wasn't going really well, so I finally listened to them and I quit. And I didn't run at all for 7 years. Put on a little weight, more than I cared to. Was feeling lethargic. I'd be driving down the road and see people running, and I'd want to get out and go with them. And I said, you know, I'm going to start running again. I don't care. I'm going to run until I can. So I started doing that, and of course, you know, as it went on, I started to have more problems, and over a period of time, 2 more scopes, you know, clean up the knees, you know. So finally, you know, I went to my orthopedist and I said, you know, what can I do here? And he said, well, you know, you're just looking at holding on, and you're going to be a candidate for knee replacement before long. And I really didn't like that diagnosis, so I went to another orthopedist at the University of Michigan, and he echoed a similar diagnosis. So, you know, I've always been one to question authority. Don't take no for an answer. I always think there's a better way to do something. So I started my search on the internet, and actually the first lead-in that I got, I was on an airplane one day and I opened a flight magazine, and there was a ad for a clinic in Florida that did PRP. And so I contacted them, and you know, they had a picture of a before and after of a knee joint and said, oh, you know, we can cure you. And so I contacted them and I talked to them for a while and traded some correspondence. But I thought, you know, I need to look further. And so I investigated microfracture because I knew someone that had had that done, and it seemed to work fairly decent for them, but they were a lot younger than me. And I asked my doctor about that, and he said, oh, you're definitely not a candidate for that. And so I asked, I looked into cadaver transplants and various other things. But along the way, I came across Dr. Wee. And Dr. Wee he told me about the procedure, and I did the research with him and everything, and eventually I sent him my x-rays and my medical records and everything like that. And he said that I looked like a good candidate. And the biggest thing for me was there didn't appear to be a downside to the procedure. The worst thing that could happen is it wouldn't work. I mean, if it went badly, I mean, I wouldn't be left crippled or handicapped or anything like that. So that was a big plus for me. And aside from the cost, because insurance doesn't cover such things yet, and hopefully they will see the light soon, because I think it's going to save them money in the long term too. So anyway, I end up with Dr. Wee, go through the consultation process, finally make the decision and take the leap of faith, and I say, okay, let's do this. So I came out here in December 2010. We arrived, my lovely wife Sharon came out with me, and we drove for convenience because I knew I'd be on crutches when I left here. It might be tough traveling on an airplane, and it's about a 10-hour drive from home. So we came out, and I came into the clinic, and they did the measurements with the ultrasound, and they marked my knee. And the next morning I came in, and they drew the blood for the PRP, and then I went out and had a nice lunch, and got myself mentally prepared for it. And I had surgery, well, procedure, I guess you'd call it. I don't know that it's surgery, in the afternoon. And it was, I was sedated, but not heavily, and local anesthetics. And there were portions of it, I'll admit, were uncomfortable. But all in all, it was pretty quick. And the recovery, I had to stay out for the weekend. And the first night was very uncomfortable, but Dr. Wee helped me with that, and he called in the evening to check on me, and I had a good supply of painkillers, so that made that easy to deal with. And so we had to hang around until Monday morning to do a follow-up exam, and then my wife drove home because I was unable to, and of course we drove through a blizzard on the way home. So she did a great job in that. But the rehab was fairly intense. The first 2 weeks I was on crutches, and then I progressed to a knee brace and a cane, and I was able to start resuming some of my activities. And after about 3 weeks or 4 weeks, and I started to get in the pool and swim. I started to do spinning on a bicycle, although I would do one-legged in the beginning and just let my right leg go for the ride. But the motion was good for it, and it helped loosen things up. But it rapidly started to improve, and I am fortunate enough to live in Lake Orion, Michigan, which most of you most likely have never heard of. Happens to be the home of the Hanson's Distance Project, which is an Olympic training program for post-college athletes. And they train these athletes, and actually one of their athletes qualified for the Olympic marathon and ran it in Beijing, Brian Sell, in 2008. So I've got the company of some pretty elite people there, and one of their graduates, Clint Barron, who once placed 10th at the Boston Marathon, which is pretty significant, is a physical therapist in my town. And so he did my physical therapy, and he has this remarkable device called the Ultra-G treadmill. And I was able to start running much earlier than I would have been able to otherwise, because this treadmill that he has, you suit up into this suit and it inflates and it takes some of your body weight off, so the impact is lessened and you're able to run. And so I was able to maintain a level of fitness and start exercising without the impact. And that helped me tremendously. So in the course of from December to early March, 90 days is what Dr. Wee told me I couldn't run. No running at all. So, but I was able to use the Ultra-G, so that was kind of pseudo running. I started training in early March with my first run, which was a whopping 4 miles, which for me is not much. You know, for some people it's a lot. But from the beginning of March to the end of May, I was able to train well enough and complete the Bayshore Marathon up in Traverse City, Michigan. And a marathon, for those of you that don't know, is 26.2 miles. Okay, so so I felt great. I was not having any knee pain. I was taking it easy. I wasn't pushing the pace. I wasn't hammering out the training miles that I could in the past, but it was very promising, and it only encouraged me because I felt good. I kept adding on and adding on and adding on. So I think there's a slide that has some of the events that I completed in the course of 8 months. I went from 9 months, I went from not running to doing the Bayshore Marathon. Then I competed in a 10-mile race. The Peterborough Triathlon is a 70.3. That's also called a half Ironman, and that's a 1.2 miles open water swim, followed by a 56-mile bike, followed by a 13.1-mile run. So that's called the half Ironman. That was in that's May, June, July. This is August. I did a 300-mile 3-day bike tour, which was a fundraising event for the Make-A-Wish Foundation. My hometown holds a world-class event, the Crim. It's a 10-miler. It draws the Kenyans, it draws people from all over, and it's a huge event. And I came in 30th in my age group, which doesn't sound like much, but there were 600 people in my age group. So I was pretty pleased. This was a bucket list goal here. I completed my first Ironman Wisconsin. Ironman consists of a 2.4-mile open water swim, followed by a 112-mile bike, followed by a full marathon, 26.2 miles, and you have a 17-hour cutoff. You have to complete that in. So, you know, all this is on my new bionic knee. And that wasn't enough, so a friend talked me into running another marathon in Illinois in September. And then I came out here and ran the Marine Corps Marathon in October, and then I came into Dr. Wee. Since I was in the area, I came in for a checkup the next day. And they checked the measurements on my cartilage on my knee and found that out of 5 measurements, 4 had increased in the cartilage and 1 was stable. So that was a lot of fun. The Huff was a 50K in December, which is 31-mile trail run, and that was through mud and water and snow, and you know, it was pretty good one. And then ran a few more tune-up races to get ready for my next bucket list event, which was in February. And I completed the Rocky Raccoon, which is in Texas. It's a 100-mile trail run. And I took a couple weeks off after that. But all in all, I guess this is just to illustrate. It's not to toot my horn or anything. It's really about Dr. Wee, and it's really about, you know, what he's done for me If I had listened to my other doctors and hadn't kept looking and hadn't found, him and his organization, I would probably not be running, and I would probably be, looking forward to a knee replacement one day. So thank you, Dr. Weed. Thank you for having me here.
Mr. Keener underwent our guided mesenchymal stem cell layering technique. And in this, what we have are mesenchymal stem cells, growth factors from platelet-rich plasma, a matrix, and a stabilizing gel. We then use arthroscopic and ultrasound guidance to help us induce a precise amount and area of injury where the stem cells need to grow cartilage. And using arthroscopy and ultrasound guidance allows us to place our stem cell preparation exactly where it needs to be. And this leads to cartilage growth and repair. Obviously, you may not be a marathon runner, but if you're an active individual who wants to stay active and avoid the metal and plastic and potential complications of joint replacement, there is an alternative. You should consider it. Guided mesenchymal stem cell layering technique. For questions and for more information, contact us at www.arthritistreatmentcenter.com. This is Dr. Nathan Way. Thanks for watching.